It is the Hokie Hangover. It is Sunday night, and it is
It,
another episode,
it is.
boys. You're
It
right,
is
it is
not.
not Sunday night. Jesus Christ. We're off to a great start. I will say, though, we did start pretty close to our announced time, which has got to be the first time in weeks. It is
Within
Monday
10
night.
minutes, pretty good.
Yeah, happy Labor Day. Unfortunately, this is another episode, though, that is after a Hokies loss. Virginia Tech scoring a whopping 11 points en route to a multi-score loss to the Gamecocks. Andrew was in town, in person, in living color for this one. Andrew, we'll start with you. Tell us about your experience in Atlanta and how inebriated were you by the third quarter?
Well, let's just say the alcohol took care of itself. It was, it's like Christmas morning going to your first football game of the year, especially neutral site, a lot of hype, a lot of friends.
What was the crowd like as far as split between Tech and South Carolina?
What I thought it would be like 60-40, 65, 35. I mean, there was definitely more South Carolina people, and you could hear them a lot louder throughout the game for obvious reasons. I also, in a wonderful scenario, I basically put my fate in my hands of my friend to buy tickets for this game, a guy who's probably not like the most like cued in when it comes to sports and stuff like that. Not that he was like terribly not cued in, but he should have known. Basically, if I could have told him, I would have told him to wait to buy the tickets because there's no way they're actually worth it. And I spent a lot of money on what would have been upper deck tickets. I did get a call from basically like my best friend from high school's dad who lives in Atlanta. And he calls me like right before the game and he goes, "I'm transferring you to lower deck club, all you can eat, all you can drink tickets." So I got a serious upgrade. However, I was smack dab in the middle of the South Carolina section. And, some good interactions with Carolina fans, some not as good interactions. I would say overall, I never like to give a broad sweeping generalization of fan bases, except for Philadelphia professional sports and UVA, because those are just stereotypes that are true. But yeah, I mean, overall, good atmosphere. I'm going to start with this, guys, and maybe this is going to be a little bit controversial, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Love the neutral site game, love getting attention, love being on TV, hate losing on TV for the millionth straight time in an important game, but that's neither here nor there. And I mean this in no disrespectful way to Frank Beamer at all. But the entire thing as a Tech fan was kind of just weird. Like, of course, I know he's going to root for his son. I'm not blaming him for rooting for his son. But like when you go on ESPN.com and the headline is Frank Beamer wears South Carolina shirt over Hokies, like South Carolina wins. It was basically just like a big exposition on this guy was our great coach. He has a son. We never hired the son. And now the son is at a bigger school doing better. It's like, if I was with Babcock, right, knowing that a lot of people wanted Shane, and he obviously chose not to hire Shane, but to be fair, I would have agreed with that decision at the time. I think I'm on the record at the time saying you should not hire Shane Beamer. That being said, if you're not going to do it, I would be trying to avoid this situation of having to lose to Shane Beamer, of Frank Beamer being given the game ball in a Virginia Tech loss when he was rooting for the other team. Like, of course, Coach Beamer's all class. I'm just saying from like an optics perspective for Tech fans, like I think it was kind of weird. And I think from a national, like 10,000 foot view perspective for someone who, might be living in Oklahoma and they don't really follow what's going on with Virginia Tech week to week, maybe even year to year. I think the optics there were like, look how far these guys have fallen since the Beamer era. Look at Beamer's son doing it for someone else. These guys can't win a big game. So overall, I mean, I think that, let's just say I'm happy it's over. And I think Coach Beamer said, Coach Shane Beamer said the same thing afterwards. Because I know, obviously, they're both alums. what the older Coach Beamer meant to this program will never be questioned. It was just kind of, it was awkward. I'll say that. It was a little bit awkward. But overall, atmosphere was good. The actual football will have plenty of time to comment on, but I would say the folks at the, Aflac kickoff or whatever they called it, committee in Atlanta, did a good job. And of course, they had the Tennessee-Syracuse game the day before. So it was a big football weekend in Atlanta, but I thought event-wise, everything kind of went out without a hitch.
Mike, you were obviously watching on TV with me. I don't know what your thoughts on it were, but from the production standpoint, it did kind of feel like the theme of the broadcast was this is like Shane's coming out party, kind of like in front of his dad and beating up on his old school. I kind of got that vibe as well. It was a theme of the commentators, and Chris Budden was talking about on the sideline, and they went into rather great detail about Shane's history at the school and the fact that he kind of went and did his own thing. Did you kind of buy that as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple elements to it, right? One is an SEC school, right? So we're already seeing that in the comments tonight. One was an SEC school, and ESPN is going to prop up the SEC brands. I know that ESPN has a television contract with the ACC, but it just pales in comparison. It's apples to oranges. It's totally different. Even though it's theirs, it's just totally different. So there's that. There's the piece of South Carolina being a preseason top 15 team. There's the piece of Lenora Sellers and the year he had last year, and he's a sophomore, and he's a quarterback that, I think in a year where outside of like Arch Manning didn't even play well this weekend, but like outside of Arch Manning, it's like a college football landscape this year that's like dying to have a quarterback breakout. I think everybody's really in the media is like thinking Lenora Sellers can be that guy, or at least carry the torch.
Sounds
forward.
like they're rooting for it, honestly.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few different angles there. And then, yeah, I mean, everybody wants to talk about the Shane and Frank piece of it, obviously, right? With Frank being the guy at Virginia Tech. But the part that's like underscored and like not talked about enough is like, this was a game for Shane, not only like against his dad's school, but that was his school. Like it's his alma mater too. Like he grew up in Blacksburg. There's just a lot to it. But yeah, it had that feel on the broadcast for sure. I wasn't too surprised about it, but yeah, that was the feel.
No issues with Frank wearing South Carolina, right?
No, Jesus, okay. God, no.
It's the issue is not with Frank rooting for South Carolina. You root for your bloodline. It's your kid.
Yeah. He should.
I just think that it was awkward that we went out of our way to create this situation where this would happen. Where it's awkward. You're watching Frank Beamer not rooting for Virginia Tech when he is like the godfather of Virginia Tech football, like this lore figure. There's the road that the stadium's on is named after him. There's a statue of him outside. I have a miniature version of that statue in my living room. Thank you, Clark Ruland. So it's weird to see him rooting against Virginia Tech and for it to be framed that way. Right. And obviously, had Virginia Tech gone out and won the football game, you wouldn't be able to frame it that way. So, in part, the result lends to walking right into that narrative that they wanted to create. I just don't think that narrative makes Virginia Tech look all that good on national television, but neither does scoring, 0 offensive touchdowns. So, it is what it is. I just think, again, I don't want anyone to misconstrue this in a way that's saying that I'm mad at Frank Beamer in any way. It wouldn't be Frank Beamer if he wouldn't root for his own family. It's the kind of man he is. It's part of why he had, such great success, at Virginia Tech over the course of 2 decades, not just on the football field, but building relationships and what have you. But yeah, it was just a little bit weird. And I could we have played someone else? I think the answer is yes, because ultimately the guy who schedules the game, Whit Babcock, is the one who kind of ends up being reflected poorly upon by the entire thing. So I guess you kind of reap what you sow, huh?
Full circle.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with them scheduling this game. By the way, I think it's great that Virginia Tech tries to play some of these somewhat regional schools, especially from the SEC. I think it's awesome. It just happens to be a situation where we didn't look all that great off the field, and we certainly did not look great on the field, at least on the offensive end. As Andrew mentioned, 11 points scored, no offensive touchdowns for the Hokies, no touchdowns, period. I'm going to read off this drive chart really quick, and it's not going to take me very long because it's pretty simple. Punt, interception, punt, field goal, punt, field goal, punt, 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 field goal, interception. Mike, that drive chart sounds like ass.
It was. It was. There's certainly no sugarcoating it. Yeah, the offense had some moments. It was just very inconsistent. We were texting about this, guys. Like I don't think 11 points tells the whole story, but it also doesn't in a way, you know what I mean? I felt like there were pieces of this game for Virginia Tech's offense where I was like, okay, I'm feeling good about things. And then something stupid would happen. A bad throw, we'll get into drones in a minute, but like a bad throw by drones, a stupid penalty, right, to shoot yourselves in the foot, a dropped pass that hits you right in the numbers, just very sloppy, right? It would be like a moment of, I don't want to call it even like a moment of brilliance. That wouldn't be fair. That would be mischaracterizing things, but like a good moment for the offense followed by something really dumb to back you up and put you kind of in like a back against the wall situation. The Donovan Green, the one that stands out to me is the Donovan Green personal foul penalty, where Virginia Tech is like dying to get something going on offense, right? Was it 8-5 at the time, or what was it? Was it 7-5 at the time? Excuse me, or was it 10-8? I can't even remember when that happened.
I'll try
the score.
And find
It's not really that, ultimately not really that important, but Virginia Tech is obviously in a position where they had gotten some momentum defensively right after the first drive, and they had settled in on that side of the ball, and they were like dying to get something going on offense, and that was just like an absolute killer. Backs you up, then you're eventually in third and forever. And it was just kind of like a microcosm of the game. That was like a smaller, it was a big moment, but like a smaller microcosm of the entire game for the offense. I just thought there were moments where it was good, and there were obviously plenty of moments where it wasn't good enough. And the end result is you're playing a South Carolina defense that, yes, replaced a ton of starters, like 7 or 8 starters. But obviously in Stewart has an unbelievable pass rusher and has a defense full of 4- and 5-star talent. A lot of high 4-star guys on that defense. Yes, making their first start. Yes, maybe a little inexperienced, but point being, I think there's a lot of talent on that side of the ball. And I think when you're that inconsistent, it puts you in a position where something like this can happen, where you're settling for a lot of field goals, and your best offense really is your defense in a field position game. That's kind of where Virginia Tech was at. I put this out here in a tweet, and I'm going to pull this up right now. I meant to have it up right before this podcast, but I did some research earlier this afternoon. So Virginia Tech averaged almost 5.2 yards per play yesterday, which is not phenomenal, but it's not necessarily indicative of scoring like only 11 points. Like in a game where Virginia Tech scores 11 points, you're thinking, okay, they probably averaged like 3 or 4 yards per play. It was probably like abhorrent. Fact of the matter is, like 5 yards per play is like not fantastic, but it's like pretty average, run of the mill. The issue is that Virginia Tech's red zone success rate in this game, and obviously the turnover by drones like highlights the issues, right? But Virginia Tech's red zone success rate was 13% in this game, according to Advanced Analytics on Game on Paper. That was in the 9th percentile, okay, of all the teams that played this weekend. So really what that tells me is that obviously between the 20s, Virginia Tech was having at least a little bit of success. But then when it came to punching the ball in the end zone or being consistent enough to put yourself in a position to score right deep in South Carolina territory, they simply weren't getting the job done. And this is too good of a team. I know South Carolina didn't look phenomenal yesterday, but this is too good of a team with too much talent for you to give them that many opportunities, right? And to be missing that many on your own. So that was really kind of the story for me on the offense. Just not good enough. Just not good enough.
I found the Donovan Green flag here. So Virginia Tech gets the ball down to the Carolina 38-yard line, sack of 7, and then the unnecessary roughness on Donovan Green. And next thing you know, Virginia Tech's punting a couple plays later.
Yeah.
It did seem like Tech just kind of stepped all over their feet whenever they got the ball across the 50. To be able to have drives that got across the 50 as often as they did and not score any touchdowns is pretty abhorrent. I was pretty critical of drones in the group chat after this game, and I do want to go deeper into drones, but it is important to note that Pro Football Focus has their grades out for this game. The highest grade of a Virginia Tech offensive lineman was Thomas Remack at a 59.5. Guys, that's terrible. That's
and
not
he had
good.
he had some bad moments too.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Altuner making his first start was a 52. Laith Ganem 58. Johnny Garrett 54. Montavious Cunningham was a 50. So this was not a good performance from the offensive line, and I'm going to put some of that on Kyron because it felt like he was not identifying the rushers as effectively as he needed to at the line of scrimmage. But Kyron is a flawed quarterback as it is, and if he's got a group up front that's just going to get beat and manhandled on a consistent basis, then we're not going to have a very fun season. Now, it is important to note that this is South Carolina, and Dylan Stewart was on the other side, and this is a pretty good bunch up front for the Gamecocks. At least they hope that it is. So this may be the best defensive line that Virginia Tech plays all year. Maybe Miami. We'll have to wait and see.
They looked good last night.
Yeah. So there's a lot to learn, obviously, and it's hard to draw too big of a conclusion after 1 week. But for me, Andrew, I think that this offensive line is even a bigger concern now than it was coming into the year, considering Matt Moore's first game was such a flub.
Yeah. I mean, I think that throughout the offseason, the more that they seem to go out of their way to hype up the offensive line, the less genuine it seemed to me, and the more concern it gave me that this group might not necessarily be up to par, especially after you go through the entire camp, running these different permutations of the offensive line where you're going to have Cunningham at guard and all this stuff. And they come out right before week 1 and say, actually, we're just going to do it with everyone at the positions that they played at their last schools. I'm like, so you tried to institute something new. It wasn't working. And you're going back to what you feel might work. We'll just try this at the end. See if that makes me believe that whatever they were trying before, probably, the guys were not necessarily getting the hang of it, if you know what I mean. That could be a problem all year. And it's week 1. It's a new group. Like you mentioned, different opponents will give you some time to get more data points to get an evaluation of how screwed or lack thereof, this team really is. Drones is drones, man. It's it's hard to watch this kid sometimes because he will have moments where you're like, he's going to win the Heisman. He just dropped a dime. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then 2 minutes later, he is missing an open screen pass that you could randomly pull 10 people out of the stadium and have them run the play, and they could complete it more often than not. These aren't it's like a pitch and catch in certain scenarios. So it's just mind-boggling and honestly really frustrating. I don't think my assumption is he just had a bad game. And it wasn't, he had, the stat line doesn't necessarily tell the entire story, but at the end of the day, when Kyron Drones was asked to deliver in the many moments that Virginia Tech seemed like they maybe knock it on the door and can take the lead in this game, he completely flamed out. He completely flamed out every every single time. And it was like to a point where you weren't even surprised anymore after it kept happening over and over and over again. When it comes to this offense, I mean, the line's going to play a big part of it. And, that's the biggest variable in my mind. I don't walk away from that despite the performance, feeling like, oh, this offense is going to be, totally ineffective and hold us back all season long. They showed me enough there that, in the good moments that you're like, okay, hopefully, the past is prologue and Kyron Jones can complete more than 40% of his passes in, games going forward, and they won't be completely ineffective in the red zone. So I'm not all that worried about the offense going forward. I don't feel better about it. I don't feel all that much worse if I feel worse. What's frustrating is it is another year of this team coming out and on the offensive side of the ball, new coordinator, same story. It's shooting yourself in the foot. It's showing up not looking like these players are ready to play week one on offense. And that's what it looked like. It looked like they weren't ready to play. Penalties, stupid drops and miscues and what have you, that it all lends to that, right? Like, so, hopefully they'll come ready to play next week. But for seeing this for the, the fourth year in a row, early season offensive struggles, it is disheartening. And maybe that is a feature rather than a bug of the fact that in this transfer portal era, you're basically starting anew with a new group almost every single year. Last year would be the exception on that one, but, someone showed up ready.
I was happy with Montgomery's play calling by and large. I think Virginia Tech, it's hard to say, it's one game sample size. I know Virginia Tech upgraded, and again, it's one game sample size on the defensive side, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I'm pretty confident Virginia Tech upgraded with both coordinators. I know it was something we said in the offseason we were feeling like pretty good about. I come out of this, even though it was an uninspired performance by the offense, I still think there's going to be a level of consistency with the team week to week in terms of like having some sort of identity. I don't know. I felt better about things when Virginia Tech was on the field yesterday, offensively from a play calling standpoint, than I have the last couple of years. With that said, the drones' ineffectiveness, right, and some of the throws that were mind-bogglingly bad, the decisions that were poor, the first intercept, the second interception, it's kind of like I want to say throw it away, but like Tech's in a really tough spot there. It's fourth down and long.
That one felt more like a physical error than a mental error. The first one was definitely a mental error.
Right. I mean, the first one, you're outside the pocket, you shake a defender, and then you're making a throw back across your body in the end zone. I mean, that ball should have been thrown 15 rows into the stands, or you get what you can get running the ball, get back to the line of scrimmage, and at least settle for 3. That was insane. An insane decision that you should not be making as a fifth-year senior. Just insane that he made that decision. And I'm sure he'd like to have that one back. At this point, Drones is who he is, right? In terms of there is going to be a lot of there's going to be moments of brilliance, moments that make you shake your head. But I do think yesterday was uncharacteristically bad in terms of what Brian Siegel of Boundary Corner put out in a tweet, which I thought was right on the money. He missed a lot of layups yesterday that were like uncharacteristic even for Drones, right? Like we've seen moments where like, all right, he's not making that throw on the out route in the way you want, or maybe he's checking down a throw and there's a guy open that he misses. There's stuff that's really frustrating, right? But I'm not asking Kyron Drones to make layered throws against cover 2, right, between a linebacker and a safety. Like if he does that, great. I'm not asking him to make professional throws like every single time he drops back. That would be fantastic, but like that's not who he is. I think Siegel had put it best when he was like, hey, I just want to see him hit the layups. And I thought yesterday it was an uncharacteristically bad game from Drones in terms of not completing the easy ones. that we've seen him complete a million times without a ton of issue. That was the biggest problem for me yesterday. Outside of everything else, the throw down the field, the interception down the field in the first half, that was crazy. We just talked about, I'm asking you to not throw it at Benji Gosnell's feet when he's wide open in the flat. I'm asking you to, hit Marcellus Hawkins out of the backfield and, just easy throws that, like Andrew put it so eloquently, like somebody from the stands could make. That's where I think the South Carolina pass rush, and this ties back to the offensive line point that you made, Ricky. I think the South Carolina pass rush got him sped up a little bit. He got happy feet on the short throws. He needs to settle in a little bit. And I think Virginia Tech's offensive line improving will help that. But Drones also just needs to make the plays, right? He just simply needs to make the plays. And when your receivers are dropping passes and when your offensive line's blowing assignments, it makes those Drones plays even more impactful, right? The plays that he's not making makes it even more impactful that he's not making those easy throws when everything else is going to hell around you, from penalties to guys dropping passes to not being able to pick up the pass rush. And some of that's on Drones too, like you said, Ricky, right? Pre-snap. But just take the layups, man. You gotta be able to hit the easy throws. And I think from that standpoint yesterday, it was an uncharacteristically bad Drones game. I'm not expecting him to be perfect at this point in his career. I'm not expecting a ton of crazy improvement, but I think yesterday was bad, even based on what we've seen for Drones for the last 2.5 seasons.
And, we were told this offseason and even going into last year that a lot of Kyron's ineffectiveness last season was because he was injured. Well, the guy's supposedly healthy now. And we saw the same persistent issues that we have seen before kind of pop up, where he's wild, he's inaccurate, his decision-making leaves some to be desired. He wasn't particularly effective with his legs either in this game. I think he only averaged like 3 yards a carry, excluding sacks. So he didn't offer much there. He didn't do a great job, like you guys have already mentioned, taking the easy ones. And for a fifth-year senior and a guy that's healthy, this shouldn't really be an issue. And I'm going to write my column for the week, and I think I'm going to particularly single out Drones just because he is the fifth-year guy that Virginia Tech has handed the keys to now for the third year in a row and has tried to build this offense around. At a certain point, you have to take this on your shoulders, and you have to find ways to make plays. And he's healthy. He's got the experience. He's got some guys around him that are good athletes. I was pretty impressed with some of the receiver play, other than some boneheaded drops in this game. Although Benji Gosnell was mostly MIA for this game, which was very disappointing. But Takai Heath, I thought, looked explosive and was good in open field. Aiden Green has something about him where he can make some really gritty catches and is able to do a little bit after the catch. Donovan Green's a great athlete, just needs to get his head screwed on right. Isaiah Spencer making a hell of a catch down the sideline, and maybe that's something that Virginia Tech can build on and get a little bit more of this year. But at a certain point, Kyron, this has got to be your offense, and you've got to find a way to make this work. And I know the offensive line's not helping you, and I know you didn't really establish the run game, which is my really lone critique of Montgomery, was that it felt like he got away from the run game early on in the first half, got back to it in the third quarter, felt like it was working for a little bit. They got away from it again. But I don't know, man. At a certain point, you are the guy. You're the guy that's making the $500,000 check. So go earn it. And Vanderbilt will be a great place for him to redeem himself. And there's an opportunity there. So not all is lost for him, for sure. But this was a really disheartening performance for me to see from him, given all of the talk that's been about him finally being healthy and being able to be Kyron again.
Yeah, I mean, walking away from this one, right? It's a weird situation because you feel, from what I saw in glimpses, I do think that this team has enough talent especially on defense, but on offense as well, where their ceiling might be a little bit higher than I previously thought. But that being said, this isn't going to be some like automatic group. Kyron Jones can't be what you have to worry about every week. You know, given all the changes, all the new players on the roster that are going to be contributing, the one thing you had, right, is continuity and what should be veteran leadership at the quarterback position. And that comes a dime a dozen in college football generally these days. He can't be what holds you back. I don't think it necessarily will be a trend, but it certainly was a reminder that Kyron Jones kind of is who he is. That was on what we hope to be the floor end of the data set of potential results you could get from him week in and week out. But, you know, especially in these toss-up games as they come, right? Vanderbilt coming up, North Carolina State, you know, Georgia Tech, pretty much everyone. You know, quarterback play can win and lose you the game. And in a game that the defense tried to give Virginia Tech ample opportunity to take it.
Yeah.
Kyron Jones couldn't do that. The offense couldn't do that. And it was a bummer.
He was making some of the throws he missed yesterday, he was making when he was hurt last year. That's why I was like, man, this is like, it's unfortunate that he's playing this poorly, right? In terms of missing some throws down the field that he was missing last year, right? And was missing in year one too. It was just like, oh man, it's kind of is who he is from that standpoint. But man, some of the throws he missed in the flat and the short passes, I'm like, dude, you are better. Like you are better, even with all the inconsistency and everybody being like this. He is who he is. I agree, he is who he is. But he makes these throws, guys. Like this, like some of these yesterday were crazy that he was missing. I couldn't believe it. Was shocking, very bad. But yeah, there's enough there with the offense. I think I agree with the points you guys made about receiver. You know, I think we were hopeful on paper coming into the year that some of these guys would pan out and step in and be impactful. And Donovan Green being good outside that terrible penalty, being able to step up and be that guy yesterday did not surprise me. You know, he's been pretty solid contributor his whole career as a college receiver, and it's a matter of him staying on the field. And you know, I thought he was pretty good yesterday. Aiden Green, I agree, Ricky. You know, finishes with 5 catches for 71 yards. He just has a way of taking a short catch, getting loose, and getting more out of it than you'd anticipate. I think it's something he's been really good at, even his first couple of years in Blacksburg. The Isaiah Spencer play was definitely huge. And then Takai Heath, catch the easy ones, please. But I mean, definitely he brings a speed to the table that Virginia Tech hasn't had in the slot in a while. So yeah, I think there are definitely some guys there, and there are some pieces. And I don't come away from this game yesterday thinking that Virginia Tech's going to be an 11-point offense every week. I don't think that that's going to be an issue, but I mean, again, one game sample, we'll see.
Offense,
a 9-point offense. Yes. Thank you. Yes. A 9-point offense, 2 for the defense. Thank you.
Shout out Emmett Laws.
Yeah. Shout out Emmett Laws, and Gilliam got there late. Shout out to those guys. But, yeah, I've pretty much exhausted my points on the offense. I was disappointed with it. I did not think it would be this bad in terms of offensive output yesterday. I didn't think Virginia Tech would score a ton, but I did think they'd put in the end zone at some point. They did not. Let's improve that heading into week 2 against Vanderbilt. And yeah, let's more importantly, I mean, we can probably get into the defensive discussion unless you guys got more, but if the defense keeps playing like this, man, and gives you opportunities to get going, then I think there's a higher ceiling here than maybe we thought.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest standout on the defensive side was how well this front 6 really held up against the run. Carolina only averaged 3.2 yards per carry. Attaway, Faison didn't do a ton in this game. They were able to add some to that total late as they were kind of running it down. But 7 tackles for loss, 4 sacks against an SEC offensive line and a quarterback that I've told you guys I'm not as high on Sellers as the rest of the country, but he's certainly a hell of an athlete. And to be able to get to him 4 times, one of those for a safety, the front 6 I thought played pretty damn good, all things considered. Woodson, Keller, for the most part, kept their gaps and didn't get themselves out of position. The guys up front were disruptive. They made Sellers get out of the pocket on a consistent basis. All in all, I thought that group played pretty darn well. Now, the secondary was kind of hit or miss, but I don't know if you guys kind of thought the same thing about the front group there.
D-line looked great. I honestly had very, very little confidence in them coming in. But, I mean, it's hard to have too much confidence in any group full of new guys that you've never seen play before. But that was the pleasant surprise I was looking for. And, again, like we talked about, South Carolina's offensive line, not necessarily the cream of the crop. Sellers was one of the sacked quarterbacks in the country last year. By all indications, they didn't make any huge strides forward for South Carolina, but a defense devoid of a pass rush and a defense that cannot hold their own in the trenches is a recipe for ultimate disaster. And I don't think that's going to be the case with Virginia Tech here. So shout out to Sam Cephas, a brilliant debut at defensive coordinator, almost as good as my boy Coach Chase Mumah's defensive coordinator debut at Tennessee Tech this weekend. They won 65-0. So shout out to him, my boy. Chase Mumah, if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, our listeners, you guys know the Chase Mumah lawyer here. I might have to break out his jersey for Vanderbilt next weekend. But either way, a tremendous showing there from Virginia Tech on the defensive side of the ball.
Mike, South Carolina went down the field 7 plays, 75 yards right off the rip, and absolutely punched Virginia Tech in the face. After that, though, it was a much, much different game, and I think that was the most encouraging sign for me as it relates to Cephas, just him. It felt like things really tightened up after that.
Yeah, I was pulling in. I had a like a Labor Day barbecue thing at a family friend's house yesterday, and we were essentially, I was watching the first possession in the car. We were pulling up to their house. I knew the game would be on there because they're big sports people. I wasn't really concerned about that, getting eyes on the game, but we were pulling in, and I told Kate, I was like, I got to watch this first possession. Like, I got to see what happens here. And South Carolina march right up the field, and we got out of the car, and I was like, well, that is not the start you want. And I will say, and I walked in, I saw my parents were there, and I said to my dad, I was like, did you just see that? He goes, oh yeah. He's like, picking up right where they left off. Well, I was really happy that adjustments were made, right, defensively. And it's almost like they got punched in the mouth a little bit against scripted plays by South Carolina, scripted plays on both sides. It's like, all right, let's see what you got. Let's run your best stuff early. And I did appreciate that Virginia Tech adjusted really well. Cephas calls an aggressive defense. I like it a lot. Like, it was, I like that there was an element of like delayed blitzing that was taking place too, that I really didn't see under Marv almost at all, it felt like. And Cephas is like balls to the walls, man. Like, he's like, they're going to get the most out of this group, I think. At the very least, they're going to try to play fast. That was the one thing that caught my eye yesterday. If you're going to make a mistake, at least make a mistake playing quickly. And I feel like Virginia Tech's linebackers in particular, Caleb Woodson and Jaden Keller, I thought they played overall pretty well yesterday. And, even if they were out of position here or there a couple times, like, they were hauling ass. The questions we've had about Jaden Keller before is like, is he getting caught flat-footed, right? We've had those questions about him before.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of that going on yesterday. If he was out of position a little bit, at least he was hauling ass, and like, it's not like he was questioning himself out there, right? And I feel like Virginia Tech's defense as a whole, defensive line played really well. I think the depth there is going to be an asset. you're hoping, and I was very hopeful about the defensive line depth coming into the season, but I told you guys on the preview that we're going to have to see when rubber hits the road. I do feel better about that and thinking that there's going to be, good depth up front. And yeah, the biggest thing that stood out to me is just the fact that Virginia Tech took the initial punch from South Carolina and then held in there, basically until the Nick Harbor play.
Yep.
That was really it. And I think you could almost chop that up to, man, we shouldn't leave our young starting corner on an island with Nick Harbor, who basically only does one thing well, and it's run a 4.3 40. Yep. That was probably a mistake by Virginia Tech's defense. I don't know if that's a play call issue or what, but Virginia Tech, I thought, held South Carolina pretty much in check for the entire game. And to give your offense, that's what made the offensive struggles so frustrating. It was like, man, this defense coming in against all the talk about Sellers and Nick Harbor, and of course, Nick Harbor blew the game open after the punt return and kind of put it away. But it was like, man, all this talk about Harbor and Sellers and the running game and all this stuff, and Virginia Tech balled it all up for a large majority of this football game. And that's what made the offensive struggles so confounding. So I was very happy with the defense holding their own. There's some speed on South Carolina's team that I don't think Virginia Tech is going to see maybe until November when they go into that Miami, Louisville, Florida State stretch. So I was pretty happy with Virginia Tech's team speed defensively and their ability to make adjustments. I thought it was a pretty promising debut for Cephas.
11 different defensive linemen took a snap in this game, which I don't recall any kind of rotation like that, certainly in the Brent Pry era, where Tech was running through guys that frequently.
Yeah. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a while. I don't think they've done that under Pry, where they've rotated that many guys in up front.
I mean, it really seems like over the course of the last few seasons, you've been in a situation where you felt like if your first group of defensive linemen went out, you were going to be throwing out some guy getting regular playing time that wasn't anywhere prepared to be relied on and be that guy in the spotlight. And for Virginia Tech right now, it seems like the situation is the total opposite, that you have a ton of guys out there that can get some run, which, over the grind of the season is going to be a big asset to this defense. As injuries pile up, and of course, as they say in football, after week one, everyone's injured. It's just a matter of, who's sitting out and who's not, right? So to have some fresh legs there, it's a very positive development. I will say, again, not all bad things. I know people come here thinking that we're going to totally tear the program down every opportunity we get. We can't not call a spade and come here and telling me the loss was like a great thing, but there was some positive developments there. And I think the defensive line is A1 on your list of things that you walk away with some optimism and a smile about.
It's the J.C. Price effect, baby.
He's had a hell of a tenure here at Virginia Tech, and
but kind of flown under the radar. I don't feel like JC's gotten, even from the fan base, the credit that he probably deserves for putting together a defensive front that they haven't really recruited well at that spot in the last few years.
Yeah. A lot of transfer portal talent, right? Obviously APR is like the guy, but they've brought in a lot of guys who have been able to contribute. And obviously you go with APR and Peebles to a line yesterday with Fall and Ben Bell, and Gilliam is a transfer, obviously, coming in last year. And just a lot of contributors up front yesterday that are coming in from the portal. And yeah, like you mentioned, I think that's really encouraging.
Virginia Tech has to face Vanderbilt here in a few days, and we'll obviously do that preview as we get closer to that game. But I'm not going to say this is a must win, because it isn't. However, if Virginia Tech is going to hit the top end of that win projection of like 7 to 8 wins, this one's really important. And a lot of fans are I think rightfully so, feeling kind of down about this South Carolina game, and we're frustrated about the offense not being able to produce when the options were there. Like you guys have said, South Carolina did not run away with this game at any point and was not able to take control of this game until Nick Harbor broke one open. So this was a frustrating one to lose. And if Virginia Tech somehow starts 0-2, I think it's going to keep people really, really sour heading into that ODU Wofford stretch.
Yeah, I think it's as close to a must-win as you can get, and I agree it's not a must-win. Like, I think you can still reach some pretty reasonable goals for the season and still put together a pretty good team if you lose this game. But I think in terms of fan base and where they're at with the offense, especially after this game, it's in a year where you really need to pile up wins. If you're Pry, yeah, this is a pretty important one. And if you don't want to call it must win, that's fine. Not you, Rick, just people in general. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't want to call it must win, that's fine. But like, it's pretty close to it in terms of, at the very least, program optics and where you're at, especially if you go out and do some dumb stuff again, which has been kind of like a hallmark of this team under this staff, is like shooting themselves in the foot after something good happens. And if you kind of put that together again, in terms of dropping passes and missing guys in the flat and committing, very stupid penalties, and at some point there's going to be a blown defensive assignment. I'm not talking about like Nick Harbor running a 4-3-40. I mean, like, you're going to have a blown defensive assignment because these are 18 to 22 year olds, and that's what they do, where somebody's running wide open. If you start doing that kind of frequently, which didn't happen a lot yesterday, that would be something else. But a lot of hypotheticals. I do think it's a winnable game, right? And
Yeah,
this is a game where I think Virginia Tech, in terms of talent, I think they're right there. You're going to be able to compete in this game. And you were right in this game against South Carolina, who was recruited better than you basically the entire time Shane's been there. And they get talent at the very top end of the roster that you don't get in Blacksburg.
A Nick Harbor on that team.
Right. And they don't have a
or
Dylan
even
Stewart.
a Dylan Stewart, probably.
No. It's the 5 stars at Tech have been the Fullers, like recently, like in recent years. It's been like, okay, Kendall
That
Fuller
wasn't
came
that
to Blacksburg.
recently, believe it or not, at this point.
Yeah.
Right. But
it's a long time ago.
Point being, like, it's a legacy Tech guy, and that's why you got that 5-star. It doesn't, South Carolina's at the very top end of their roster. They're getting guys that Virginia Tech's not getting. And you were right in this game. Like, anybody who watched it knows Virginia Tech was in this game, which I think made the frustrations about the offense even worse, because it's like, man, we had an opportunity, and I don't want to say pissed it away, but it felt that way with some of the stuff that they were doing.
Yeah.
So
it felt like they at least could have been in a position where they had a shot to win the game in the fourth, which is what I told you guys I really wanted to see from this. Even if Virginia Tech fell short in a late rally comeback, I really wanted Tech to have a chance to drive the ball to win the game. And they weren't that far off. Like, if they had just taken care of the football, maybe had a better coverage on the Harbor touchdown, this game looks a lot different. But hopefully, as you mentioned, Mike, the talent disparity between Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt may not even exist. I think those teams might be on pretty even footing. And to be quite honest, they haven't done a deep dive into the Commodores, so I don't even know if they even have an equal roster to Virginia Tech, because they very well could not have one.
Tech opened as a field goal favorite at home, and usually with the way odds markets work, you usually get a field goal if you have like a reasonable home field, you generally get a field goal just in terms of betting markets. So I think Vegas views this as a pretty even game here.
It's already moved to 1.5, but
Damn.
the money is moving in Vanderbilt's direction as of now. But yeah, I mean,
I wonder
national
why.
TV game yesterday,
Tech,
standalone.
It's almost like Virginia Tech hasn't beaten a Power 4 non-conference opponent.
That too.
at home in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
All streaks must come to an end, and hopefully it will. I mean, again, must win. No such thing unless they're going to fire him and if he loses. But the general vibe around the program will not be good next Sunday if they don't walk away with a win. What we saw in Atlanta was enough where you should feel it's okay to feel frustrated. I felt very frustrated all throughout the game. But I left more confident that Virginia Tech. I'm more confident in their ability to beat Vanderbilt after the game than I was before.
Me too.
So that's something. And I think that a lot of people should feel that way. And of course, Vegas is opening up saying, based on what we saw and the games in Blacksburg under the lights, Virginia Tech should be the favorite in this game. Now, that's moving. That could change, what have you. This team isn't incompetent. And, talent. They're not devoid of talent. And from what I saw from the defensive coordinator, there's a new level of competence, perhaps in the meeting rooms and on the sidelines, which is, again, reason for encouragement. But eventually, at some point, we're going to have to go into one of these toss-up games that means a lot for the fan base and come away with a victory. Like, there's like Price said it after the game, and it's very true at this point. There are no pats on the back. There are no moral victories. You got to win. And that was the team that was deemed to be the 13th ranked in the country and didn't win. And no one really thought you would. But now, especially with the meat of the schedule that's coming up, Vanderbilt, North Carolina State, Georgia Tech. I mean, Cal, their quarterback looked pretty good the other night. I don't know. Maybe Cal.
Yeah.
This is where jobs will be won and lost this season. And, you hope that the defense wasn't a fluke and that the offense is going to come out firing on all cylinders. And, that lack of execution wasn't showing you who they are, but rather an anomaly there.
A one game sample, right? On both sides, offense and defense, 1 game sample. And the special teams blunder when you can't cover a punt. A 1 game sample size for this season with this group. And I know there are broader trends with the coaching staff and quarterback and all that stuff, but a 1 game sample size, right, for all 3 units. But if Virginia Tech's defense looks like this every week, the floor is astronomically higher, because a big issue under Pry has been there's no consistency, offense, defense, special teams. Not like week to week, it is all a question. Like, there's going to be some really high moments and really low moments with all units. If you get at least the defense playing, if the defense plays at that level the rest of the season, you're fielding a top 20 defense, which I don't think, I'm not sure they're going to play that well the rest of the year. But like, point being, if you field a top 30 defense this year under Seifkes with everybody you brought in, all the transfers, obviously it's a home run hire and you've hit incredible marks with a bunch of the transfer guys. If you're fielding a top 30 defense, I think the floor of this team is raised, because I would be very surprised if the offense is this poor, like this poor the rest of the year. Because I don't, as terrible as scoring 11 points is, or excuse me, scoring 9 points, as Ricky so eloquently alluded to earlier, that's more accurate too. If you're only scoring 9 points with the offense, obviously that's terrible in and of itself. But like we've all mentioned tonight, there were enough moments there that this didn't feel like Iowa struggling to cross the 50. This felt like struggling to be consistent enough to keep drives together and put yourself in good position in the red zone. The drones interception, the penalties, the drops.
Just get out of your own way.
Just get out of your own. Just get out of your own way. It's not like we can't complete a pass because our quarterback is throwing like with his knuckles. It's not like that. It's like, get out of your own way.
And it's not just on the offensive side too, because the punt return for the touchdown, the initial illegal formation that allowed Shane to get them to re-kick was because the gunner was not on the line of scrimmage. I mean, just like petty BS that you
Yeah,
have to clean up.
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Like, what are we doing? Like, do you guys? Again, it's like it seems almost like self-sabotaging at certain points in the game, right? Like, of course, the punt is on that BS, and then of course against the son of Frank Beamer, they're going to take one back to the house on you. Oh, beautiful throw, chop block. You don't have the ball at the South Carolina 25. Now it's third and the city of Atlanta.
I didn't know it was a chop block to get someone in the hip. What?
They keep changing the chop block rules. They changed the chop block rules, I think, 2 years ago, and it's a lot more punitive now in terms of what is a chop block, right? They've made it a bit more broad. So
I was always raised that if you go at somebody's hip, that's not necessarily a chop block. But regardless, Virginia Tech is
neither here nor there. It killed the drive.
Yeah, it definitely did. Before we go into our final thoughts, I want to recap our picks from the preview pod. We are going to keep track of these every week. We still need to figure out what our group wager is going to be. So again, if you guys have any good ideas, please throw them out, send them over. We'll take a look and see if we can do any of them that are suitable for work. Andrew, the Calgorithm pick is going to put you in front here. Andrew finishes the week at 6-3. Andrew went Kennesaw State, Georgia Tech, Tennessee, UVA, Cal, and South Carolina. That gets you up. We are still waiting on the result of this TCU UNC.
It's over. 34-7 TCU. It is.
Well, we all had the Horny Frogs, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so the only real pick here that's going to make a difference is Andrew going with the Calgorithm.
Okay. It worked out for me there. That being said, I did tail my brother, Mike McDaniel, on the Marshall -6.5 total points against Georgia.
Our and ripped out in the fourth quarter.
Taking an under one touchdown over the course of an entire blowout game. So I'm watching it. It's such a weird thing to root for. Just complete offensive ineptitude all throughout the game.
Fun,
it was fun.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun. Had a great time with it.
As I always say, gambling is not about winning and losing money. It's about the friends you make along the way. But that was a tough one. I did have it a little bit of an emotional hedge on South Carolina with the points, so not all was lost there. But credit to Virginia Tech for again, you guys knew my expectations going into that one were far lower than the way the game actually played out. I thought they were far more competitive. So again, I'll be really interested to see. I was very interested to see the initial spread that came out, and I wasn't surprised that Virginia Tech came in as the favorite, though. And I guess we'll leave it at this for my final thought before we jump off. But in a battle of what should be even teams, it oft comes down to quarterback play. And I can tell you that the guy standing across the sidelines from Kyron Jones is going to show up ready to go. That dude is psychotic, and he's a real talent. So we're going to need better than 40% completion percentage.
Sounds like he's also got some family with some law enforcement issues. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yes, brother got arrested at the stadium.
Was it one or two brothers? Because it looked like they were the same name. So I don't know.
Oh my goodness!
But the Pavias have some issues off the field, which. If you have paid any attention to Diego Pavia, you do know that, like Andrew said, he is a little psychotic. So it is not all that surprising.
Which again would make it all the more fun to beat him. But
I have a feeling Steve Kiss is a little psychotic too.
But he's quiet about it. Like he's
just there's a quiet confidence about him that I really like. Yeah. I have a feeling that Pavia was celebrating quite a bit last year, right? As he should be, as he should have. in Nashville. Celebrated
Yeah.
quite a bit after that win. Talking crazy. I have a feeling that the defense, at least from a motivational, emotional standpoint, will be ready to go. They're going to need to be.
If you can lock up Lenore Sellers for the most part,
This should
Be able
not
to-
be.
should be able to do it against Diego Pavia.
This is two different levels of quarterback here, like in terms of physical specimen and what they bring to the table just from an athletic giftedness standpoint. Pavia is a gamer. I'm not going to sit here and say he's absolute gamer, but it's a little bit of a different prep. It's all right, guys, like don't let him get confident sort of thing versus don't let him like make this move to the right and then cut back left because he's going to take it 80 to the house. It's just a very different preparation.
Very different players. We'll go with that.
Yeah, for sure. Again, if you want to see those full ACC picks, go to the website, HokieHangoverPod.com. Andrew's at 7-3. Michael and I are at 6-4. Izzy finishes the week at 4-6. We'll go ahead and get ready for week 2. But again, all those picks are available at HokieHangoverPod.com. This episode will be available at HokieHangoverPod.com. My weekly column will be available at the same spot. We have our photo gallery from the Aflac kickoff is already on the website and there for you to view. Counts Family Pharmacy in Blacksburg. That's the place to be if you are in the NRV. Home Field Apparel, best place to get your Virginia Tech gear if you haven't already done so. It is Maroon Effect this weekend, so if you're going to the game, you need to get you a maroon shirt and you want a retro-looking one that has some great designs. They fit really well. They're comfortable. Home Field Apparel. Beamer Ball gets you 50% off your first order online. Any last words, boys, before we wrap this one up?
Shout out to the staff at the Margaritaville in downtown Atlanta. Me and my crew came in and, we were probably a little on the more jolly and perhaps challenging side, but they did an excellent job. And to think, and I learned today is the 2-year anniversary of when we lost Jimmy Buffett tragically. So, we honored Frank Beamer's legacy in the morning, and then in the evening, we did so for that of Jimmy Buffett. So shout out to him, R.I.P.
Have a feeling it was a bad weekend to be a beer for Andrew and friends.
It was, again, week 1, a lot of excitement, big new city. Everyone got home in one piece. We'll go with that. No Diego Pavia's brother situations in the Andrew Alex crew.
We'll see if you guys can raise some hell this weekend in Blacksburg as the Commodores come to town. We'll be back with the preview later this week. We'll go ahead and look at the team that Virginia Tech should have beaten last year in Nashville. Couldn't get it done. Hopefully things are a little bit different. Again, subscribe on YouTube if that's your platform, your favorite platform. That's the best way to get our episodes so you never miss one. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I think Elon throttles all posts on X with like external links. So if you're following us on X and you're not knowing when we're going live, go on YouTube. If you tap the bell, you'll know exactly when we're going to go, pending that all of the hosts are ready at that time. And we'll go ahead and get our episode started. We're also available on all the audio platforms, Amazon Music, Spotify. Mike is going to switch over to the Basketball Conference podcast. So if you are a night owl and you want to get a longer, fuller ACC recap, go over to the Basketball Conference on YouTube. They'll have a little bit of fun over there for you.
I'll probably do that myself. And folks, if you can send me a screenshot that you are subscribed, and you can do this on X, you can do it to the Hokie Hangover account, or you can do it to Andrew Alex Radio. Either way, we'll accept it. DM me a screenshot of the fact that you are subscribed and signed up for notifications, and you will enter for the chance to win a Scott Savino, producer Scott, signed golf ball. So this is the offer of a lifetime, folks. A Scott Savino signed golf ball. Again, DM me the picture of you being subscribed and signed up for notifications. And yeah, go check out Mike's pod that starts at about 5 minutes, that's probably how I'll finish off my night here.
Is not producer Scott aware that this is a giveaway?
No, he has no idea.
He'll know shortly.
Andrew, I'm going to need you to share that tomorrow when we share the podcast, because I want to see how many people are going to actually do that.
Hey, shout out Will Secor in our comments tonight. He is he's a basketball conference fan. He's all over the comments in the chat, the ACC pod all the time, and he saw we were going live on the Tech Pod tonight, so he made sure to jump in. Will's a Georgia
Will,
Tech
make sure
fan,
you
so shout out Will.
make sure you make this part of your weekly rotation. Sunday
Yeah.
nights is usually when we're going to be recording our recaps. Obviously tonight, being that it is a Sunday game, we're recording on Monday. But Sunday nights around 9:30, hopefully, that's when you can expect the Hokie Hangover. Until we get back for our preview, which will be again later this week. Go Hokies.